What's going on, everyone? It's Ben from YGO from Zero, back with another retro Yu-Gi-Oh video and back with another Chimeratech format video. I really like this format, which is based around SJC Orlando in January of 2007, using the September 2006 ban list along with the emergency ban of Cyber-Stein that was instituted in December of 2006. I think this format's really fun. It's like in mid-GX, and it didn't really have too much broken in the format. There's Chimeratech OTK, but, I think that there are a lot of other fun decks that you can play, and that deck isn't too oppressive. And, speaking of fun decks, what's more fun than an Elemental Hero deck? And this is a special Elemental Hero deck because, Elemental Heroes, they got Neospacians to go along with them now, and they got Elemental Hero Neos. So this is an iconic card from the Elemental Hero archetype, so I figured I'd cover a deck featuring it here, especially after seeing this in action on a previous video where the duelist Hoy actually played a version of this deck against me, and I thought it was really cool, so I thought I'd try my own hand at it here. But we've got an Elemental Hero Neos deck, and basically the goal of this deck is not necessarily to contact fuse, although we are playing, Elemental Hero Aqua Neos and an Elemental Hero Aqua Dolphin to do that if we want to. But the main goal of this deck is basically to get Elemental Hero Neos in graveyard and then bring them back with O Oversoul, which is a normal spell that says target one Elemental Hero normal monster in your graveyard, supposed to summon that target. Just being able to repeatedly bring back 2,500 beat sticks is not that bad. So I figured that it would be a pretty decent strategy here. And I think after playing the deck, I like it a fair bit. It's kind of fun. But before we get into the games, let's go over the card by card real quick, just to get more into the nitty gritty of why I built the deck this way. So of course we've got the triple Elemental Hero Neos here, along with the one Neospacian Aqua Dolphin. I didn't really feel the need to put in too many of these because it's searchable off of Reinforcing the Army, which we are playing two of. And also, I don't really think that Aqua Dolphin is that good in this format. It's the best of the Neospacians in my opinion. The only other one that gives it some competition in this format is like Dark Panther. But Dark Panther is not really the best, in my opinion, and the monster Contact fused into is really not the best. Neither is, like, Neos, Aqua Neos here, but, it's better than Dark Neos, at least. So I figured I'd put it in for the content, but if you're building this deck for yourself, I'd say probably cut the Aqua Dolphin, because it really isn't the best. But there are some neat things you can do with it. For instance, like, if you've got Neos out in the field, you can potentially, get a hand rip of your opponent. You can also do that with, like, a Sidra as well. So that's why we're playing triple Cyber Dragon. You're supposed to summon out Sidra, summon out the Neospacian Aqua Dolphin, potentially rip a card out of their hand. So it does have some use cases, but it is a bit awkward overall. But, as I mentioned, we got the triple Sidra. This is also just to get more aggressive because, especially summon this out on an empty board, and it can be a formidable threat. We get a breaker to deal with our opponent's back row. We've got a DD Assailant, a DD Warrior Lady, and a double Exiled Force here because we are playing a Rota package to go into our Aqua Dolphin more quickly. But I do like the Warrior package in this deck in general. We're just an aggressive deck, so it makes sense to be playing these options here. We got a Morphing Jar to draw deeper into our deck, and also because we want to get these Neoses into the graveyard. So I do like Morphing Jar in this deck. We've got a Sangan here to search out a variety of monsters from our deck to our hand, including Snipe Hunter, which is used to pitch Neoses from our hand to the graveyard, because we really want this Neos in grave, so Snipe Hunter is a good option for that. It can also be great removal to potentially close out a game. We got a Spirit Reaper here to wall up against our opponent's stuff. We got the triple Neos. You could potentially cut this down, but it's the main bread and butter of your deck, so I do like including three of it. We also have triple Emergency Call to grab the Neoses from deck to hand. This may be a bit excessive, but I think it's overall fine just to make sure that we have the Neoses online as quickly as possible to turbo them out. For the other spells, we got a Book of Moon here to just protect our Neos or flip down our opponent's threats. We've got a Confiscation, rip a card out of their hand. We got a Graceful to draw deeper into our deck and pitch the other copies of Neos in our hand. We've got a Heavy Storm to deal with our opponent's back row. We got a Metamorphosis here. The reason I have this in the deck is that there actually are a variety of powerful options you can go into off of the 7 stars that Neos has. For instance, you can go into, a King Dragoon or Last Warrior from another planet. So Last Warrior's level 7, King Dragoon's level 7 as well. Yeah, there's just a lot of good options you can go into here. Cyber Ogre 2 as well you can go into as well, which doesn't really come up as much with the other two, but it is something that you can do. Cyber Blader as well. Those, I think, are the level 7 fusions that you can go into with this deck. But we are playing some other cards just in the fusion deck just to sort of fill out the ranks here. We are not playing any 8s or 10s in the deck on its own, but like if our opponent brings one out, then we could potentially, I guess we don't really have a way to take control of it, so that would never really come up. But, there are weird edge cases that maybe you'd be able to get an 8 or a 10 out, and then you'd be able to go into that. But the main other feud monsters we're going into are stuff like Dark Balter the Terrible, Fiend Skull Dragon, just the level 5 ones, because, we got Sidra in the deck, and you might go into that. We also have a Reaper on the Nightmare here to go into as well off of level 5. For level 3, we got Dragoness, the Wicked Knight, to go into off of Aqua Dolphin, Spirit Reaper, etc. We've also got a Carbonala Warrior in the deck to go into off level 4. You can also go into Darkfire Dragon here, which has slightly higher defense, but the main reason I have Carbonala Warrior in the Fusion deck here instead of Darkfire is that, like, if you're up against a deck playing Rivalry of Warlords, which I don't think many decks are playing, but they might play it, then this is a Warrior, so you can actually go into it off of a meta of another Warrior. Doesn't come up that often, but it is something to keep in mind. So, yeah, I mean, also important to note that the Fusion deck at this time is unlimited, so if you do need another card, you can proxy it in, but it's important just to mention that. But anyways, back to the spells, we got an MST here to deal with our opponent's back row as well, and Knock to deal with their sets. We got triple Oversoul, which is sort of the main combo of the deck. We're trying to bring back this Neos here. We got a Pot of Avarice because, you know, we are playing a lot of discard cards. We're playing triple Raigeki Break as well, so we want to potentially have a card that can go +1, especially in the late game. We've got a Pre-Mat here to bring back our monsters. We got double Rota here to grab a warrior from deck to hand. And for the drop, we got a Call to bring back our Neoses as well. We've got a Mirror Force to deal with our opponent's monsters. We got Triple Raigeki Break, as I mentioned, a Ring Destruction to pop their monsters, and a Torrential Tribute to blow up the board. For the side deck, we've got a lot of different options for a lot of different decks. We've got Triple Death Wombat and Triple Decree for burn decks. The Triple Decree can also come in against gadgets, potentially, because those do rely on a fair amount of traps. Although some gadget decks don't play traps, so that is important to note if you are planning on siding this into gadgets. Maybe not against every gadget deck if you haven't seen them there on a heavy trap lineup. We've got Triple Dust Shoot for gadgets as well as for monarchs. We've got Triple Threatening Roar for more OTK strategies like Machine OTK. We've got Double Bottomless to deal with our opponent's big threats. And we've got a Jinzo to shut off traps as well. That's going to do it for the deck breakdown. Let's dive into some games and see how this deck actually plays. Now, as a note, for these games, I mainly found against jank decks. You know, just the time that I asked, I guess people were not on competitive style decks like monarchs or gadgets or things like that. But we still get some pretty good games here. And I think that one of the jank decks also has potential for coverage in a later video, so I'll get into that when we get into that. But we're facing up against Zaworldo Dark Arm God, if we can get on the channel. I'll always put it at them on, and we got a pretty good opening hand. We got double Raigeki Break, which is a bit awkward, but we can pitch our Neos, get that engraved. We got Pre-Mat as well, TT, Breaker to deal with their set, so we feel pretty good about this. We bring out a Breaker, pop their back row, and they're going to think about that, and they will Book of Moon down the Breaker. Fine by us. We can just set a TT and a Raigeki Break, pass back to them. If they've got like heavy, we lose the TT, which is unfortunate, but we can still break the set, pitching the Neos, and we're fine with that. But I feel like this is fine. If they don't have heavy, you know, we can TT the board and get a like 2-for-2 trade, but we've got Pre-Mat, you know, we've got Break to deal with other things that they bring out. So I feel ultimately pretty good about this. But they're going to go for Heavy Storm indeed. So we're going to chain Raigeki Break, pitch the Neos, pop their monster, and we do lose the TT there as well. They go for a Exiled Force there, which tells us that they don't really have the best monsters in hand, because otherwise they would have just summoned out a monster, hit over the Breaker. So I feel pretty good about that. And we draw Sidra, which I feel like may not get a chance to shine, because again, I don't think they have many monsters, because they went for Exiled and Breaker. So I am just going to pay 8, bring back that Neos from grave, and then attack in directly with that. And now we know that Heavy's gone, so we can set this Raigeki Break without much fear. Pitching the Sidra is a bit awkward, but I think it is ultimately fine. They're going to smashing around the Neos, though, which is a bit unfortunate. Then go for a Pre-Mat of their own, and they're going to bring back this DD Warrior Lady here. That's ultimately fine. I don't really think we need to pitch the Sidra here, because we can remove the Warrior Lady with the Sidra itself. So we can save the Raigeki Break for later. And we draw Oversoul, which is really good. We're supposed to summon out that Sidra, go for Oversoul, bring back the Neos. Now we have no cards in hand to use Raigeki Break on, but I think the aggression is worth it, because they are pretty low on life points here. So we attack over the Warrior Lady for 600, then attack directly for 2,500. And that drops them down to 1,600 total. So we're going to pass back to them, and they're going to draw. And yeah, they just admit defeat because they can't do anything on this board. And that shows the power of the Neos deck when it really does get an early start, because you can get really, really aggressive with this deck like other decks cannot. So we are going to be going into game 2. I don't really think I changed much in the siding, because, I mean, we didn't really see much of their deck. We just saw that they were on Exiled and Warrior Lady and Pre-Mat and Book, I guess. But that's not really much to go off of, so I don't really feel the need to do anything. We go to standby. And we summon out this Breaker. We try and pop one of their back row. We hit a Knock, which is pretty good. I decided to just pop one of their back row, because I figured if they've got like a Battle Trick here to stop the Breaker, then, you know, it's going to trade for that either way. So I might as well try and snipe a card that is not a Battle Trick in the back row and then attack in. And best case scenario, this clears both their back rows. And it does not actually. So it looks like that other set might not be anything to stop the back row. Or not to stop the back row, but to stop the Breaker. So yeah, I'm not really sure what that other set is, but we get to coffee their hand. See that they've got a Kaiku, a Harpy Lady 1, a Mobius, and a Graceful. So we're going to take that Graceful, not give them the chance to use that. I think they were waiting for better discard fodder, but, that Graceful's looking like good discard fodder to us. So we pitch that and leave them with the Mobius, the Harpy Lady 1, and the Kaiku there. Kaiku's a little bit awkward for our deck because if they banish the Neoses, then we don't really have a way to get that back. So that can be a bit tricky. We have to keep that in mind. We're going to go for an emergency call here for another copy of Neos just so we don't draw that later. And then we pass back to them. They're going to go for a Kaiku here, attack over a breaker there, deal us 200. And we have no monsters in graveyard to banish. And then they'll activate this Swords, pass back to us. So we don't really have the best way to deal with Swords. We're just going to set this DD Warrior Lady here, hopefully clear up the Kaiku there. They're going to bring out this Harpy Lady 1, which we knew about, and they're going to attack in to our set Warrior Lady. We're not going to banish that because we are much more afraid of this Kaiku, and they can't clear the Warrior Lady with the Harpy Lady 1. So now they either have to attack over the Warrior Lady with the Kaiku here, or they have to tribute out the Mobius and attack over the Warrior Lady that way if they want to keep their Kaiku around. I mean, this is all assuming that they don't draw into another thing, but like I feel pretty confident about this overall. This is a very interesting hand. We go for Graceful here, and we have a couple different options. I think ultimately I do want to just pitch both the Neoses because the Neoses are like, we can't bring them out from hand, so they're better in graveyard, but it is a bit risky in case they do have a way to, get in with the Kaiku, banish both of them. But we can go for a Rhoda here, grabbing an Exiled Force just to pop the Kaiku, just to make sure that we don't have to worry about that. So we're going to get that out of the way and then pass back to them. And now I feel like we're in a pretty good spot. They go for Slate Warrior here. They attack over the Warrior Lady, which is a bit unfortunate, but, we will be able to banish that. And they'll attack in with Harpy Lady 1, dealing 1600. We draw Oversoul, which is perfect. We can go for that. Potentially rip a card out of hand with the Aqua Dolphin here. So I do need to decide whether I want to do that because we can't actually get aggressive this turn if we do that. So I'm just going to set the Reaper and save that for later. Get that the last turn on Swords. They go for Exiled here, popping the Reaper. And now they're able to attack in for 16 with the Harpy Lady 1. They're going to pass back to us, and I feel very good about this. We're going to go for Oversoul here, and we're going to grab back that Neos there. And now we can actually go for the Neospatian Aqua Dolphin. We're going to pitch this Knock, because I figure, if they have a monster in hand that we are afraid of them setting, we can just, get it out of hand with the Aqua Dolphin anyways here. So we go for this. We get to peek at their hand. See, they've got a Hunter Owl and a Mobius here. I'm actually going to take the Hunter Owl instead of the Mobius, because Mobius they need a tribute monster on board for. And I feel like it might be a bit tough for them to get that on board. So I'm just going to take the Hunter Owl there, get it out of the picture here, and try and attack over that Harpy Lady number 1. And that will indeed go through. So that back row has been on field the entire time. Hadn't really been used for anything here. But either way, we could set the pre-mat as a bluff. I don't really want to do that into a known Mobius. I figure I can just use the pre-mat to get back a Neos later. But anyways, they're going to go for a Kaiku here. That's a bit unfortunate. Now they can banish our Neos from grave, which is rough. But they're just going to banish an Exiled and a Reaper here. I'm not really sure why they banished the Reaper. Yeah, I don't really know why they banished the Reaper. I think it would have been better just to banish the Exiled and the Neos, so that way I don't have access to that. Because Reaper can't be brought back, because then it would pop itself with something like pre-mat or something. But as is, I'm able to just win the game here. I go for an Exiled. I go for Oversoul, bring back that Neos there. And this should be the end of the game because this is 5,000. So that was just a Dust Tornado. So, yeah. I think if they had played this differently, banishing the Neos instead of the Reaper, they might have still been in it this turn, but they were in a really, really tough spot because they had the Mobius in hand, which wasn't really of any use to them. And we had a lot of aggression here. Like, we would have had the Oversoul in hand remaining. And so we would have been able to bring back that Neos if they cleared that, and Neos gets over Mobius. So I feel like we were in a very, very good spot here, and there wasn't really much that would cause us to lose the game from this point. So that's going to be the end of the first match we got for you, and this shows how powerful this deck can be. Like, if you're able to get aggressive with it, it can just blow out the opponent depending on what they're playing. But let's dive into a deck that, this deck might have a bit more trouble against. Okay, we got a game against Model Zero. If you can catch them on the channel, always a pleasure to have them on. We're diving into the game here. We are going first, which is always nice for us. And this is a pretty decent hand, all things considered. Now, what I could do here is I could just summon an Aqua Dolphin and pitch a Neos and just immediately rip a card out of hand. And that is what I decided to do. Might as well just go for it, get full hand knowledge. Now, I'm not expecting to hit a monster out of their hand. If they've got Treeborn Frog in hand, I could hit that. If they got Reaper in hand, I could hit that. But there really isn't much that just a lone Aqua Dolphin can hit. So I'm expecting to take 500 here, but why I do this is because I want to get the Neos in grave for setup for like Oversoul plays and things like that. And also I want that full hand knowledge because I think full hand knowledge is pretty important. So we get to peek at their hand. We see that they indeed do not have a monster here that Aqua Dolphin can pop, but they are playing a bit of an interesting deck. They've got Overload Fusion, DD Scout Plane, Mirror Force, Blowback Dragon, and Dark Magician of Chaos here. So I think that is very, very good knowledge to have. The Mirror Force is especially important to know about. Also knowing that they've got the Blowback, they've got the Demock, and they've got Overload Fusion as well to worry about there. So I think this was important to just, sort of get a sense of what they're playing. We do take 5 from that because, we aren't able to pop one of their stuff. But they are going to now set 2, pass back to us. We draw into a Rhoda here, which is pretty good. We just bring in a Breaker and try and pop that back row, but it is a TT, so that must have been the draw. So they'll pop their own Scout Plane, pass back to them. And I feel pretty good about this overall. They set 1, pass back to us. We draw a Premat, so we could go for that, but I just feel like using the Rhoda is a bit better. So we grab a DD Assailant here. This can be a bit awkward if they're playing like DD Survivor in their deck, because then they can banish that and, basically get over the Assailant for free. But this is the most damage, and I feel like it is good to just press our offensive right now. And we're just going to pass back to them. They pass back to us, so I feel very good about that. We know about the Mirror Force, so we're not going to play into it, but we're just going to keep attacking in for 17, set this call, pass back to them. They go for Rhoda here. They're going to grab a DD Survivor, so now they are indeed able to get over the Assailant here. So this is sort of the downside that I mentioned, but I think overall this is still fine for us. They get back Survivor, but we've got a call to bring back the Neos and get rid of it that way. We draw an emergency call, so we're able to go for that as well. We go for the Exiled Force here just to get it out of the way in case... I mean, they've got Mirror Force, so yeah, I think that this is fine. We can go for Premat, save the call for a bit more of a reactive way to bring that back. And if they do have Heavy, they have to clear their own Mirror Force, so I'm fine with that. We attack in for 25. We could go for a meta here to bring out Last Warrior, but again, with Mirror Force, it doesn't really seem worth it to me to do that. So we are just going to go for an emergency call, search out another Neos here, and then we're just going to pass back to them. They're going to just set 1, pass back to us. We draw an emergency call again, which is now dead, so a bit unfortunate, and those can be dead a bit later in the game, and we lose our Neos there. So they're just going to pass back to us. We draw a TT, which is pretty good as well. And I just feel like it's good to get aggressive here. So we're just going to go for call on the Breaker and just try and get in while we can. If they Mirror Force this, I'm perfectly fine trading the Breaker for a Mirror Force. But it looks like they won't. So we just set this TT here, pass back to them. They've got a DD Scout Plane. They've got a creature swap as well. They're going to go for that. Attack in for 800. We're perfectly fine with that. We'll take that all day. They set another pass back to us. We draw a Snipe Hunter, which is pretty good here. So we're just going to go for the Snipe Hunter, get sniping. We're going to use priority, and we're going to target the Breaker because at the very least, if we miss on the Mirror Force pops, we could potentially choose to proc the Mirror Force ourselves with the Snipe Hunter just by attacking in. But if we pop Mirror Force, then we miss on all the Breaker pops, then we can't do anything there. So I feel like it's good just to try and pop the Breaker that will go through. Now we're going to pop what we are pretty sure is the Mirror Force. I don't know if we know it guaranteed, but we're going to try it. So we pitch the Neos, we pitch the dead E-Call because the Neos roll did not work out. And, oh no, that's rough. I think about this for a bit because I'm thinking like, should I save meta? Should I not? But I think like it is just better to go for it now. So I'm going to pitch the meta. Like meta needs other monsters to make work. And, I feel like they're at the point in the game where like, it doesn't really pay to use meta. I guess like, if we clear the Mirror Force with the Snipe and then we draw Oversoul, we can like meta away the Neos into a King Dragoon to stop things like Saku or enemy controller, things like that. But it's unclear whether they're actually playing those or not. So we're just going to go for those, attack in for 15. And they are going to go for an Econ there and not the Mirror Force. That's interesting. But I do get why you do that because Mirror Force you want to save for a bigger threat. But now I could potentially pop the Mirror Force here. So I go for Avarice because we do draw it, and I shuffle back a Neos, a Breaker, a Neos, an Exiled, a Aqua Dolphin, and that's all the monsters in grave. So I shuffle back all those to draw 2. Hopefully I can pop that Mirror Force now, and I will pitch the Sidra, try and pop that set, and it is, yay, a 5, so we get to pop it. We get to attack in for 1500 here, and that will eat another Econ there to switch our Snipe to defense. We will now set this Morphing Jar. They summon out a Banisher. That's perfectly fine by us. They will banish the Snipe Hunter. We draw Heavy Storm, which is pretty good. We'll set that Heavy Storm. Go for the Morphing Jar here and chain TT here. I feel like this should be pretty good for us overall. Because, it clears their monster, and we can now use the Heavy to blow away their back row without really blowing away anything of our own. But if we draw a monster here, we pretty much win the game, and we do indeed draw a monster. So we're going to Heavy Storm, blow away that back row, summon out Sangan, and try and get him for lethal, and that will indeed go through. So luckily, we were able to get our Neoses engraved before they were able to set up like a Banisher or a Dim Fizz or something like that. But doesn't always work out that way. For the siding, I actually take out all the like DD Warrior Ladies, the DD Assailants, things like that, which, banish, and that did not pair well with Survivor. So I take out those, I put in some Dust Shoots, because I feel like this deck can break a bit on monsters that we saw there. But they go for a Comfy there, ripping away a Graceful. Then they summon out a Banisher, pass back to us. And now we're in an awkward spot because, we can't really do much. Like, if we pitch the Neos, they'll get banished off the Radiance. So I don't want to do that. We could pitch the Avarice, I guess. But we want to get the Neos engraved as quickly as possible. So I just set TT, I set Break, pass back to them. If they do have Heavy here, I just chain Regeki Break, pitching Avarice, banishing that. If they summon out another monster, I TT them. They're going to attack in for 16. They set 1, pass back to us. We draw a Dust Shoot here, which could have been a monster, so maybe it was a mistake to side out of the DD Assailant and DD Warrior Lady. But we go for a Dust Shoot here, get a peek at their hand, so we still are getting some value here. We see that they've got a DD Survivor. We're getting rid of that 100%. We also see that they've got a TT, a Swap, and a Fisher, so it's not looking good for us. They've got plenty of ways to access banished stuff, even if we clear the Radiance, so it's a bit unfortunate for us. They'll attack in for 1,600 here. And they'll pass back to us. We draw a pre-mat here, which is a bit unfortunate. We got to think about exactly what to do here. We're just going to pass again. Again, we're trying to wait for a way to, like get aggressive on board or clear the Radiance that doesn't just require us to summon out the Aqua Dolphin, pop it with the TT, and then cry, right? So they're attacking for 16, pass back to us. We draw an E-Emergency Call. I'm just going to go for that and grab this Elemental Hero Neos here. And I think now we could potentially do something. We're going to go for Aqua Dolphin, and we're going to TT the board away just to clear that. I think what I could have done instead was just Regeki Break the Banisher, banish a Neos or an Avarice, probably the Avarice. Yeah, just banish the Avarice. And then summon out the Aqua Dolphin, use its effect, pitch a Neos, and then pre-map back the Neos. I think that's what I should have done. But instead, I just do this in a bit of a weird fashion because now I Regeki Break their set there, which is like fine. It still serves a purpose of getting the Neos engraved. It deals with one of their back rows, so that's kind of nice. But now I have no like defensive options because the TT was very important there. And now if they draw a monster, they can just creature swap, take our Neos, and now we're in a bad spot. So we attack in for 2,500. Getting aggressive here. We'll set the Avarice as a bluff, pass back to them. And they do draw a monster, so they're going to creature swap that over to us. Attack in for 400 here. And that's a bit awkward for us. They activate this Dim Fizz now. And we draw Morphing Jar, which will not quite do it if they've got another monster. But we'll set that, pass back to them. They do indeed have another monster here. They're going to attack in with Neos. So we do... I think we survived there because they attacked in with Neos. So we only take 1,600. We were at 2,000, so we did survive there, but I guess I didn't want to reveal the Morphing Jar. Also, my math is wrong here, but anyways, we go into game 3, and I do bring back in a DD Assailant because it does beat over Banisher, and we did have that problem last game, so I do bring that in, take out one of the Dust Shoots, and now I set an Assailant and a Mirror Force, pass back to them. They're going to bring out a Breaker here, so they're able to pop the Mirror Force, quite unfortunate, and then go for Swords, go for Future Fusion as well, to reveal Chimeratech Overdragon, get all their machines engraved, and this is going to be pretty rough for us overall. Yeah, I'm not really sure. I mean, this is scary. If they've got Overload, then that's going to be really rough for us. But it looks like they did not. We just draw an Oversoul here. We're going to bring out this Breaker. We're going to pop the Swords there. We could have popped the Future Fusion, but the way I see it, if they bring a Chimeratech that pops the board, so I don't really need to pop this. It does put in one more machine engrave in case they've got an Overload Fusion, but if they've got Overload Fusion, I pretty much lose the game anyways. So I feel like it's not really worth considering the Overload Fusion case because, again, I lose to that no matter what. So I'm just going to attack in for 17. I then set this meta as a bluff because, I mean, I could potentially get out like Neos next turn, and then Metamorphosis into Last Warrior to stop things. So that is something that can potentially happen, but I feel like that's kind of unlikely, and it's just better to set it as a bluff here. They go for a Sidra, and now they go for attacking over this Breaker, so we aren't able to bring out the Neos next turn. Then they go for an Exile to pop the Assailant, and now they will pass back to us. We draw Heavy. I don't really feel like we need to use the Heavy, because they're going to blow up the board next turn anyways. I could have set, like, Exiled here, but I don't really think it matters that much. Because, again, if they've got Overload, they've got Overload. They kind of win the game either way. So, I feel like it's fine just letting that go through. but they do need to have the overload, so they are able to just banish a ton and get a total of 7 machine monsters banished. So that means that that's a 5,600 attack there. They do have a Rhoda to grab a warrior lady here, and now they're able to attack in for a lot of damage. So this is a bit rough for us, especially because they're getting back these scout planes at the end of the turn. There's just more bodies for more damage, and they're able to attack in for a ton, dropping it down to 400 life points. They're able to bring back these scout planes. They do come back and attack by their effect. And now they'll pass back to us. We draw a call. Unfortunately, that's not going to quite do it. We bring out this exile here, and we attack in to a DD scout plane. And then we will pop the Chimeratech, because that's what we got to do. Now, we have a slight chance here. The only chance we have is if, well, I mean, now we don't have a chance, but the only chance we had if they didn't have this third scout plane in hand, which was very unlikely given that they future fusioned away the other ones. But if they didn't have that in hand, then, you know, if they had attacked in with the scout plane first, we could have activated Call of the Haunted, brought back a monster like, you know, Assailant. And then after they attacked into that with Warrior Lady to clear it, the scout plane would not be able to attack in again. But as is, given that they've got another one here, this is just going to be the end of the game. So we bring back the Assailant with the call. They attack into that with the Warrior Lady, banish both. And now they get in for 800 there. So that'll be the end of the game. So, you know, this deck does suffer against decks that are playing things like Dimension Fusion and Macrocosmos and Banisher of the Radiance. It can have a really tough time against that, because, you know, it needs to get their monsters in grave. And also, you know, as we saw here, you know, it's not OTK. So if your opponent does have a way to assemble the OTK, like with Overload Fusion plus Future Fusion, then you're in for a bit of a tough time. Now, we do have Raigeki Breaks in the deck, so that can stop plays like that. We do have Mirror Force. We have a lot of traps to stop their plays, but if you don't draw them, I mean, this is kind of a flaw of a lot of decks in the format. If you don't draw those and your opponent's just able to pull it off, then you do lose the game. But, you know, even after they went for the Overload Fusion play here, we weren't quite dead, which is still something to say about the deck. And also something to say about Chimeratech OTK, because I do think that Chimeratech OTK, not in the same league as like Stein OTK, which is what has been terrorizing the previous GX formats. You know, even if your opponent pulls it off, it's a lot more fragile, and also it doesn't necessarily kill right away. So all important things to keep in mind with that. But of course, I saved the best game for last. This game was against a deck that was more tailor-made to beat it, but the last game is against a really, really cool deck that's sort of doing some similar things, and it led to some very, very interesting games. So let's dive into that one now. Okay, for our last game, we got a game against Scout Zero, who was on a previous Chimeratech video, and a pleasure to have them on as always. They're becoming a frequent guest of the channel, and we're going to dive into the games here. We're going first, and this is a pretty decent hand. Now, we could do the Neospatian Aqua Dolphin play that I mentioned before, but we don't really have any good monster to pitch from our hand this time, so I don't really want to do that yet. So I'm just going to set the CT pass back to them. If they bring in a monster, we TT it potentially. So I feel like this is pretty good. They're just going to set 2 pass back to us. We draw a Neos here, so now we can do that play if we want to. But I feel like we can still wait a little bit. Yeah, I don't know. We could do it, because if we do it, then we get back the Neos with Oversoul, and then we can do stuff like that. We can potentially meta it away to do things. We got Call as well to bring back stuff. So it might be best just to do it. But I feel like I'll wait this time. You know, we'll see what happens. And they flip up a Troop Dragon. Okay, that's very interesting here. So it seems like they're on a bit of a dragon deck, which is kind of neat. And they're going to set 1 pass back to us. We draw a Sidra. So now we can actually do some big plays here. We go for Sidra. That's fine by them. And now we go for the Aqua Dolphin to potentially rip a card out of their hand, because we got a 2100 beater here. So we go for the Aqua Dolphin. We pitch the Neos here, and we do get to peek at their hand. So we see that they've got a Heavy Storm, a Dragon's Mirror, a Card Destruction, and a Sword. So nothing we can actually pop with the Aqua Dolphin there. But it does show that they're on a 5-headed dragon deck, which is very cool. And I do think the 5-headed dragon decks do something a little bit similar to this deck, where they're trying to get things in grave to go for a big Dragon's Mirror. So just bring up big bodies to attack in. Of course, both decks go about that in different ways, but it's still cool to see both these like very interesting combo decks facing off against each other. So I'm glad that this is the last game we got for the video. But yeah, we can't do anything about that. So we just have to note down their hand, and then I believe we don't take 500. Oh, no, we should take 500 here. Yeah, because it's only if... yeah, so we should be 500 lower here. Unfortunately, we forget that. Good to keep in mind with Aqua Dolphin. Very, very strange effect. So, yeah, we do mess that up. I don't think it matters here overall. But, we will bring back this Neos here, attack in for 25, and try and just get aggressive here. So we do that, then just pass back to them. They MST our TT, and that's a bit scary for us. They're just going to set 1, though, and pass back to us. We draw a Mirror Force here, which is pretty good. We're going to think about this, and we're just going to attack into it with the Neos. If it's another Troop Dragon, they get out another Dragon from deck, and it's a bit awkward for us, but they just bring out another Mass Dragon here. So that's a bit scary because they're able to fill up their grave with a bunch of dragons here with this. That's a bit rough for us. We set this book, pass back to them, and they're going to go for heavy. We think about this, and we will ultimately book down our Neos in case they are able to pull off the Dragon Mirror combo this turn. We don't want to, sort of have a Neos in attack mode with that. They will tribute over the Mass Dragon, though, for a White Horn Dragon. This is very interesting. They can banish a ton of spells from our grave to buff that thing up to 3,100 attack, and that is a lot on a monster like that. So this is also another reason why the decks are kind of similar, because if you can bring out White Horn Dragon, then you just have a big beater that can beat over a bunch of monarchs and things like that. So very cool stuff there. They're just going to set that swords. We set a Mirror Force and a call, pass back to them. If they heavy, they have to get rid of their own swords, so we're fine with that. And now they're going to attack in with the White Horn Dragon. We will Mirror Force that, get that out of the picture. They're going to pass back to us. We draw a Raigeki Break, which is pretty good. We can set that, pass back to them. They go for a Mirage Dragon here. And then at the end of the main phase, we will use this Call of the Haunted to bring back a Neos here. So I feel pretty good about this. They're going to think about exactly what to do, and they will ultimately just attack into it here with the Mirage. Not quite sure why they do that, because Dragon Mirror can actually use monsters on field as well as in grave. So they could have gone for Dragon Mirror here and tried to attack over Neos, but we got Raigeki Break for that anyway, so it wouldn't have really mattered too much. But we're just going to pass back to them, and now the Swords is gone. They go for Dragon Mirror there. And they will banish 5 dragons, get out a 5-headed dragon, and now they'll attack in with the Neo. Oh, wait, they're not going to attack in with the Neos yet. They're going to go for Dimension Fusion first. That is really cool. So now they're able to bring back a ton of dragons. Now the White Horn Dragon will be able to use its effect, but we got no spells engraved, so it won't be able to banish anything there and buff itself up over the Neos. So this is still fine for us because we can clear the 5-head with the Raigeki Break here in the main phase. So at the end of main, we will go for the Raigeki Break, pop the 5-headed dragon. We're going to pitch this Snipe Hunter, because if we do need the Snipe Hunter back, we can bring it back with pre-mat. But at the end of the day, we don't have enough cards to really support the Snipe Hunter in hand here. So they're going to think about this, and they're ultimately just going to set 1 pass back to us. We draw an Oversoul, which is pretty good as well. If they pop our Neos, then we can use that to bring it back. We don't have any Neos in grave right now, but we can attack into this 5-headed dragon. They do have Mirror Force there. They will clear the Neos there. We're just going to Oversoul that. The call should have gone here, but I forget about that. Oh, no, wait, I don't. I just do it after. But anyways, we go for Oversoul in main 2 just to have a blocker here. And they're going to switch the Mass Dragon to defense, pass back to us. We draw an Exiled Force, which is pretty good. We're just going to attack into the Mirage Dragon here. I don't necessarily want to get the White Horn Dragon in grave, because if they spell summon that back, then they can potentially banish some spells to buff it up a bit more to 2,500. So they're going to Raigeki Break, pop the Neos there, and we will go for this pre-mat here, bringing back the Neos, just preventing them from ever clearing this Neos here. And then we're going to think about whether to use the Exiled, and I decide ultimately to use it here. I think I maybe could have saved it, but I just want to clear the White Horn Dragon, get it out of the picture. But that does really backfire for us if they've got a pre-mat. But if they've got if they've got pre-mat, that does... did it lose the game? I don't think it loses us the game, but it's still really bad. So I think I should have just not done that. But I guess I was afraid of, like, if they've got spell and trap removal, then they can do something with that. But I think I should have just kept the Exiled in hand for later. We're just going to attack into the Mirage Dragon, prevent them from deck thinning a bit, and then just pass back to them. They're going to switch the Mass Dragon to attack here, attack into the Neos. So now they can deck thin, get some cards out of their deck, and also set up for more Dragon's Mirror plays. Although I think they can still use the Dragon's Mirror, because again, you can banish from field as well. But either way, they're going to do that, deck then a bit. And we draw Graceful, which is really good here. We draw 3, pitch 2. We're going to pitch this Neos, and we're also going to pitch the Reaper there, because now we can use the E-Call, thin out our deck a bit, and pair with the Raigeki Break in hand there. So we're just going to attack in... We're going to think about this, set the Raigeki Break and attack into the set, because I'm like, if it's Morphing Jar, then I don't want to lose Raigeki Break. And if it's not, I'm going to set the Raigeki Break anyway, so it doesn't really matter there. And it is a Troop Dragon, so no targets left in deck for that. And yeah, I feel good about that. They're going to go for Upstart, and they're going to draw into the Dragon's Mirror there. So the deck thinning paying off for them. They're going to banish 5, go for a 5-headed dragon here, and attack into our Neos here. We do have the Raigeki Break for that, so we can pop it. Pitch a Neos to grave. We draw an Exiled Force here as well. And ultimately, we're going to hold the Exiled Force. We're just going to attack over the Troop Dragon there because we know they don't have any targets left. And we're going to leave the Mass Dragon there. We could have potentially just summoned the Exiled Force, attacked over Troop Dragon, attacked into the Mass Dragon with Neos, and then popped whatever they brought out with Exiled Force. But I feel like this is ultimately fine because, like, we wouldn't have been able to win the game through battle damage that turn anyways. And also, this is not allowing any deck thinning on their part. They go for a Future Fusion here, but they don't have enough legal targets left in deck. So that is kind of rough for the Dragon deck here. They're going to set 2, pass back to us. We draw Pot of Avarice, which is pretty good. We're just going to go for the Exiled Force now. Try and pop that Mass Dragon if they chain TT to this, which, oh, they don't have TT left, so it can't be TT actually there. So I can pop that, feel fine. And it looks like we will be going on to the next game there. So very, very intense stuff. The 500 from Aqua Dolphin did indeed not end up mattering, luckily. But it is important to note that for the future. For game 2 here, I decide to bring in the Bottomless Trap Holes because I figure it's good against 5-headed Dragon, just to clear that. It also stops Mirage Dragon, which can be a pain for us. If they Dimension Fusion out a bunch of dragons, I can also use the Bottomless on that as well. So I feel like it is still worth bringing in the Bottomless. So I believe I take out an E-Call and a Comfy because I'm going second, so Comfy's a bit less good. And E-Call, you know, can break a bit when you play 3 copies. I think, honestly, in the future, I'd cut it down to 2. But that's why you play the deck, to test it out, see what works, what doesn't. And our opponent opens a Future Fusion here, which is very scary for us. They're going to send 3 Troop Dragons, a Mirage Dragon, and a Whitehorn Dragon here. And that is very scary. They're also just going to summon out this Mass Dragon. And yeah, we're in a bit of a tough spot. They've got Dragon's Bear. We're kind of in a pickle. But we just special summon out this side right here. That's fine by them. We go for meta into a Dark Balcher because I feel like Dark Balcher is pretty good here. And now we can attack into the Mass Dragon. We want to save Exiled Force for other monsters that they might have, like other big guys they might have, like a 5-headed dragon or something like that. But they do have Raigeki Break for our Balters, so that's going to be a bit unfortunate for us. We go for the Exiled now, just popping the Mass Dragon there. And now we set a Raigeki Break pass back to them. I feel like this is fine. We can set the Bottomless next turn because 5-headed dragon is definitely coming out in their standby phase. You know, of their next turn. So I feel like this is fine. They go for Mirage Dragon here. I just take that. I feel like 1600 damage shouldn't matter too much in the long run. And, you know, I've got 3 monsters in grave already, so I'm getting close to Avarice, and I want to save the Bottomless for the 5-head. We draw into Heavy Storm, though, so that's a bit awkward for us because, you know, we can't just Heavy Storm the board away and save the Bottomless for a Dragon Mirror play. So we ultimately do go for Raigeki Break, pop the Mirage. Now we go for the Heavy Storm to clear their back row, and now we set the Bottomless pass back to them. So if they do draw Dragon's Mirror, which is one of their big sort of combo makers, playmakers, you know, we are protected against that. They go for a Sanguine here, attacking in for 1,000, setting 1, passing back to us. We draw Oversoul with no Neos in grave, quite unfortunate, but we'll pass back to them. They're going to go for Comfy, rip that Oversoul out of our hand, and they're just going to attack in for 1,000. And we will just take that. I mean, we're dying to Sangam Beats, which is a bit of a risk with this deck. We draw Warrior Lady, which is interesting. We could potentially just set the Warrior Lady, because if they do have like TT here, we get punished by summoning out the Warrior Lady to attack. But if they do have TT, we want to clear that as quickly as possible. So I do think that just summoning out the Warrior Lady is the right choice. And we do go for that. Deal 500, banish both, pass back to them. And they will just pass back to us. We draw into Neos, which is not quite that good for us here. And we'll pass back to them. They're going to pass back to us. We draw Sidra, which also isn't really the best right now. And we'll pass back to them. They go for card D here. We are perfectly fine with that card D. Draws 2 good ones. And Oversoul is a pretty good one, honestly. They're just going to pass back to us. We're drawing another Neos here. And now we can go for Oversoul to bring back the Neos and try and get in for 25. So we feel pretty good about this. Tech in for that 25. They will take it. And then main 2, we're just going to set this book pass back to them. They're going to go for a heavy here. We'll book down our Neos. We do lose the Bottomless, which is quite unfortunate. And now they've got the Dragon's Mirror. But the good thing here is that at least we aren't dead to a 5-head because, you know, we set the Neos. So we can protect ourselves until they activate this Dimension Fusion. That is very unfortunate for us. And yeah, this will be the end of the game here overall. We get to bring back this the Warrior Lady, which is okay. But they do have multiple monsters that can clear the Neos. So what they can do is they can just attack in Whitehorn Dragon into Neos, Whitehorn Dragon into Warrior Lady, attack directly with 5-head, and that'll be the end of the game. So I let them do their thing, you know, banishing 5 on that one Whitehead or Whitehorn, banishing 1 on the other, and this will still be lethal. So they attack in to the Warrior Lady, and yeah, unfortunately the last card in hand, not Karibo, it is just a Neos. So that'll be the end of that game. So very, very cool stuff from the Dragon deck. I want to try out this deck future on the channel. So maybe later this week, maybe next week. But either way, this deck is so, so cool. So I'm glad we get to show it off in this game here. But anyways, hopefully Neos can take a dub in game 3. We bring in the Dust Shoots here because we are going first. And I feel like it is decent against a dragon deck like theirs. So we go for E-Call here, search out this DD Assailant. Or no, we search out the Neos, not the Assailant. And we set the Assailant, set the Dust Shoot, pass back to them. We go for Dust Shoot here. We're Dust Shoot gaming. You know, unfortunately, a feature of this format is triple Dust Shoot. So not going to be everyone's cup of tea there, but a lot of retro formats have to deal with Dust Shoot. Anyways, we see a Mirage Dragon and a Dragon's Mirror, a Confiscation, a Morphing Jar, a Raigeki Break, and a Knock. So what I ultimately decided to do, is I decided to take away the Mirage. For one, it gets one last card engraved for Dragon's Mirror. For two, we do have ways to deal with Morphing Jar, whether it be reinforcement for an Exiled Force or meta plus Cyber Dragon for a Balter. That does, lose to Raigeki Break, but they have to pitch a card from hand. Well, I don't know. I still feel like it's fine to do the Mirage. Because they Comfy. Yeah, so there is a potential really bad case where they Comfy take the Rhoda, and then we Sidra out that, meta into Balter, and they pop it with Raigeki Break. But in order to do that, they have to pitch the Dragon's Mirror, which has been unfortunate for them. And also, we don't even necessarily have to do that. We could just set the meta and attack into the jar, or try to. And if they Raigeki Break, then, it's fine because they're still using up the Dragon's Mirror in hand. And we do lose our Sidra, but we do keep our meta that way, which is fine. And also when the Morphing Jar goes off, they'll pitch our Neos. So I think either way, the Mirage is the bigger threat, which seems weird to say, but I do stand by that. And yeah, I guess the big risk now is if they just Comfy away the Rhoda, then we're in a bit of an awkward spot. But they banish the Assailant. I misclicked there. And they're just going to set 4. Okay, so they're setting everything. So they're choosing to save the Comfy for after the Morphing Jar. And they're also shutting off their break, which is just really perfect for us. So we're able to bring out this side right here and go for an Exile there, popping the Jar. Now we tag in for 21 here, and we feel perfectly fine about this. We got Rhoda for follow-up, and we're just going to set those two, pass back to them. If they heavy here, they're losing a lot of cards on board. So I feel like this is ultimately fine, and we know about the Comfy, so we're leaving only one card in hand for that Comfy. They rip out that Neos there, and they're just going to pass back to us. We feel perfectly good about this because we can Rhoda now. Go for, let's see what we want to go for. A Warrior Lady, that makes sense to me. And now we can use this meta here, tribute off that Sidra, go into a Fiend's Skull Dragon, which does shut off the Raigeki Break. And now we should be, smooth sailing. We don't get to use the ring right now because the Fiend's Skull does shut off our own traps to the target as well. But, we got that for later for closing out the game. They're down to 1,400. Next turn, we attack into a set with Warrior Lady, banish it, and then attack directly with Fiend's Skull. So, yeah, that will unfortunately not do it for them. This was just Dimension Fusion, which doesn't help them here. So, yeah, that was a pretty good set of games, I thought. I really like this Neos deck a lot. I'm glad we got to show it off, doing what it does. I don't think it's necessarily a top tier deck by any means. It's very bricky. You wind up in low resource scenarios quite a bit. But it's a fun deck to play. And, having a 2,500 beater can just be something fun to do, especially when it's an iconic one like Elemental Hero Neos. But what do you think about this deck? Let me know down in the comments below. Let me know if you're going to be playing your own version of this deck in this format, or whether you're just going to stay away from it because anything Elemental Hero is just a bit too jank for you. Also, do all the YouTube stuff, like, comment, subscribe, etc. We're trying to reach 1,600 subs by the end of the month, just to grow the community even more, and we're almost there, so with your help, we can do it. Also, big shout outs to my patrons, Rincewind, Pork Tycoon, Brent Donker, Dump Truck, GMYFS, and Tyler Compton. It means a lot that you all support me this way and encourage me to make more videos like this in the future. Join the Discord server if you want to play games in Chimeratech format, and join in the monthly tournament for it that we'll be holding next month. But until next time, I've been Ben from YGO from Zero, and I'm signing off.